Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Wednesday, November 26th, 2025. I think that's right. Yep, that's right. And today we are live here to take your farming, foraging, or football, European, of course, questions, whatever you all want to talk about. So let's do it. All right, welcome everyone. I hope you all are doing well and feeling well and all those good stuff, all those good things. We are live today, so as you all trickle in and have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. Mike is there handling the chat room, so you can also just say hi to Mike. Mike is good people, and just say hi. Everyone also give a big shout to him, just for all the work that he does and for managing all these questions. So get your questions into Mike. While you get those in, I'm going to bust out one of our ad reads today real quick. This one from our friends over at High Mowing Organic Seeds. High Mowing Organic Seeds is celebrating their 30th anniversary. Wow. With 47 fabulous new varieties for 2026. Highlights include downy mildew-resistant cucumbers, poppy that looks like cotton candy, and 12 new tomato varieties. High Mowing offers more than 750 varieties of certified organic non-GMO vegetables, flowers, herbs, and cover crops, all trialed for optimal performance in organic growing systems. Hugely important for seeds, by the way. High Mowing has the professional quality seeds and supportive grower reps to get you from seed to harvest. Visit highmowingseeds.com to request a catalog and use code 2626 no-till, 26 NOTILL for 10% off your order or of $100 or more. Huge shouts to High Mowing, for their support, and we love them as a seed company. We've, like when we were certified a few years ago, we used to love using High Mowing, just because all their seeds are organic, so it really simplified things for our, like bookkeeping and our, like record keeping rather, and for our certifier when we got our audits. So just having, just being like, they're from High Mowing, they'd be like, okay, those are organic. So that made things a lot easier. Again, as you all trickle in, you should get your questions into the chat, and Mike will get those to me. And while you're there, say hi to Mike. The voice is just like not recovered this season, and I don't know what that's about, but I think it's like everybody, the kids are going to school, so they bring something back and then, just kind of recycles through the house or something. But the voice is like not fully returned, but it will one of these days. I have full faith in that. Also, let's see, what have I been up to this week? Yesterday I finally did sow the carrots that I threatened to sow. I'm unsure about this. So the idea here is that I want to sow carrots now. I want them to they're actually getting irrigated as we talk, or as I talk. So I sowed them in the tunnel, and, I got usual bed prep stuff, broad forked, put a little compost down, broad forked, kind of worked that compost in a little bit deeper because it's kind of a clay spot. It's where they used to keep horses, so it's super compacted in that area. It's gotten a lot better, but it used to be super compacted. And then, so then I raked it clean, and then I sowed our carrots, and now I'm irrigating it with the intention of here shortly, maybe I'll cover it here like after I'm done watering it. And the idea in my mind is to have those slowly germinate, but I want them to come up in like early January. And then maybe even like early to mid-January when I usually sow my first round. So in the tunnel. So what the idea there being that if they can come up then and I can keep them protected, maybe I can get them to a good size by March and before they want to bolt. So I'm not 100% sure it's going to work. I honestly don't think it's going to work, but you never know. It's worth trying these things, and that's what I'm here for, right? So you all don't have to. I can try these things and see how it goes. Usually I would sow my first round in the tunnels in January. They wouldn't germinate until about February when we're starting to get warm enough temperatures. It isn't too hard to protect them. And then, then they size up and I pull them all by the end of April. So that's usually what I do. But in this case, I'm going to try some different things to get some food in March because that's our hunger gap. Keep your questions coming. Keep them coming in to Mike, and I see a few have arrived. William Curry, what's up, William, asks, how did the TEF trials go? Are you going to do it again next year? I love TEF. Things that didn't work with the TEF All right, so just to back up, teff is a really good sort of summer cover crop. It doesn't go to flower super fast. It is a grain that, folks use all over the world. But it is like it's just a really fine grass. It's a really great, just holds the soil in place, and it's not super aggressive. So my idea for it was to kind of use it underneath of things like okra or, tomatoes or something, or even in the pathways, just to kind of have that space there occupied by something that's more easy to get rid of. And so I did it in a few different places. And one of the things I tried was like to smash it down and plant watermelons in it, and that was a total failure. And part of that is probably has to do with the moisture levels at that time, because like we went from all that rain we got in the spring, which was like, I think we had 40 something inches by June. By the time it stopped raining, it was like 44 inches. And then it stopped raining for 2 months. And then we immediately went to another 4-inch rainfall. And now I think we're at 62 inches or something on the season or on the year. That's just 2025. I think if you just go back 12 months, I think it's over 65 or 66. So anyway, it's a ton of rain. But there was a huge gap there where it was nothing. And I put the watermelons in like right at that gap, and they basically just never really got enough water. And I was trying to dry farm them. So that didn't really work, but I do like it. I think I'm going to use it in some pathways. I really love it like that. Mo's okay. It kind of comes back, but it mostly just dies. I also got sent a video recently from Beech Grove Farm. You can check them out on YouTube, about sowing rye in the summertime in the paths. So cereal rye in the summer in the paths, because it's not going to go to seed in the summer. It needs to go over winter. So basically it just stays small and it chills all summer. So they were doing that this year, and I thought that was super cool for just holding soil in place, but also for us for like the living pathways. So the teff I think could also serve in that spot. It is a little bit more likely to go to seed though, so I'm kind of interested in this rye thing. I'm going to keep playing with teff though. It is the most beautiful, just to have like a thick green, this thin sort of spindly grass. It is really cool. I mean, I wish I could have my lawn look like that. It was just really pretty. Ongoing, William, I think is the answer. Jacob B. Lloyd writes, whether it's silvo-horticulture, cover crops, or intercropping, do you have any recommendations on regenerative practices applicable to vineyards? A lot of growers, I mean, they use a lot of cover crops in vineyards. And I mean, I think, there was one episode of the Winter Growers podcast that was probably like season 2. Gosh, I'm spacing her name right now. She's a famous vigneron out in Italy, I want to say in Friuli, but I could be wrong about some of those facts. But Clara interviewed her about her vegetable production in between vineyards, and I think that's super cool. Like that's what they do over the winter because they don't have like the big massive green to contend with the shade. And maybe they do it over the summer. I can't remember, but that was really cool. So that's worth checking out if you can find that. Just go to the Winter Growers podcast and listen to all of them. You'll find it eventually. They're all good. Then let's see, we did, there's other growers who are using fruit trees and stuff around their vineyards. Lots of cover cropping, lots of stuff like, a lot more biochar usage. Mimi Castile is doing some good stuff there. Also, clovers and that sort of stuff. I remember several years ago, I went to visit, these names are not in my brain right now for some reason. There was a guy out and she also interviewed him. No, somebody else interviewed him. Maybe I did. No, I think Mimi actually interviewed him. Eric Texier, that's his name. Out in France in the, sort of the Beaujolais region and the Rhone area. And he was doing like Fukuoka style white clover sort of wines. And I don't know if he's really doing that so much now, but he was doing like some Fukuoka style stuff that I thought was really cool. And we got to taste those Fukuoka wines. And I think that was like his first vintage. And I don't know what, if anything, has come of that. But Texier is a cool guy, like super thoughtful grower. And Yeah, there's so many opportunities for integrating animals, and that was, for a long time, was a big part of it too. There was a grower out in California, maybe it was Oregon. I think it was a Pinot grower out in Oregon that was integrating sheep and goats like years. This would have been like almost 20 years ago, and I remember thinking that was super cool because it wasn't something that you saw a lot at that time. I mean, natural wine was certainly coming on the scene, but it wasn't like so much about the vineyard practices at the time. It was kind of starting to talk about that, and people talked a lot about biodynamics. But that was something that was like another level that I thought was really cool. Can't remember the name of that producer, but there's lots of opportunity there for sure. In any sort of perennial production, like lots of opportunity for integrating animals. So yeah, totally. Let's see. Quick Z77 writes, going to keep turkeys in the garden this winter to kill everything out and fertilize the soil. Opinions? Sure. I mean, yeah, like you just have to move them enough so you're not getting like heavy concentrations of nitrogen, and make sure that you're adding some carbon source there just to both lock up that nitrogen and also just like to keep it from being too heavy in any one given place. Just moving the coops around, that's going to be the biggest thing. Like let's say you were going to use it, you said in a garden area, right? You just want to make sure that wherever they're staying overnight, where they're having the heaviest concentration of manure, that you're just kind of mobile. You're just like moving that probably on a day or at least every other day basis, or pretty frequently, just to keep it from being like a heavy concentration in one spot. Alternatively, obviously you could put some bedding down, let them stay over there overnight, and then just like keep adding bedding and then rake all that and, use that as like a compost or something later, like compost it and use that later. But I love turkeys. It's one of my favorite animals. When we were interning, we worked with like every animal. I worked with pigs and goats and sheep and cattle and did everything. But turkeys were like always my favorite because they just have they just have such personality. And they're just like goofballs. I really enjoyed raising turkeys. So that's a fun one. Yeah. They're not going to have a great day tomorrow, but that is that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. And let's see. Oh, William Curry writes, would like to know if Jesse is going to write any more books. Have worn out the book, and I basically want more. So I was talking to somebody about this recently. I don't know how, I'm not writing another book at the moment. I probably won't write another book anytime soon necessarily. I don't know a whole lot what I would add to the book that I already wrote. I mean, there's like little bits and pieces, but it would probably just be an update later. And there's a few different reasons for that. One is the Daily Show takes all of my time. Like if I have any spare time, it's all completely absorbed in the Growers Daily. And that is essentially, the amount of research and work that goes into it. It's like writing a 3,000 word essay every single day. So that kind of is a book. And I kind of think of it that way in terms of like, it's a book every 3 months that I just get to give away to people. Thanks for for the like all the support that we get through no-till growers and all that stuff just goes to being able to like keep this information free and open to the public that anybody can have. And I like that model. I don't know. I got a little disenchanted with books in general, with writing books, but also just books in general in that process. And, so I think like this is a much, kind of a different model maybe. And I would like to write something again eventually maybe because I enjoy that process. I liked that part. I liked the editorial process. I had an amazing editor. And so, I think, and shouts to Fern, by the way. I think like it's one of those things I'd love to do it again, but I probably won't at least anytime soon. Just finding the time to physically do it will be challenging. So that, that's one of the biggest hurdles, I guess, in that regard. Let's see. Hector D. Loera. Maybe I got that one right. I have broccoli that is beginning to sprout, but is going to flower right away before the heads are a good size. I am in Valley Center, California, San Diego. Any thoughts? We just did one kind of about flowering broccoli. Like broccoli that flowers too early. That can be, At this time though, if you have broccoli right now that is beginning to sprout but is going to flower right away, part of that could be the variety that you were using. Part of that could be the fertility of the area. So like if they're just not really heading up and they're just straight going to flower, it probably just means they either need maybe some more moisture, which would be my guess there in San Diego County. Maybe it's a compaction issue, like they just don't have the roots don't quite have the area to move around and get what they need. Infertility, those would be the three things that I would address first. And also just like variety, make sure that you're finding a good variety for that area. But yeah, the broccoli heads obviously are a flower. So what you want to do is you want to extend that sort of flowering, that sort of pre-flower period. I think there's a term for it. But yeah, and a lot of that comes down to the timing when you plant them, which in your case shouldn't be an issue because of this time of year, and especially not in San Diego. But yeah, that would be my guess, is probably a fertility issue. So I would start there. There's not a lot you can do about it right now. Just eat those, get those flowers and eat them. That's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it. And that's not a situation where I would like save that seed and try again. I would start with new seed because you would be maybe saving against that biennial property that you want. So yeah, that could be the place to start. Got a super chat from Richard Gould, who writes from Blue Raven. Excuse me, Richard writes, any advice for putting beds to bed? Yes, give me 1 second. I'm going to drink some water. So, and also thank you, Richard, for the super chat. If you want to support this work, if you want to support keeping us, just like all this information free and open to the public for anyone and everyone to access, you can send us a super chat, or you can sign up at patreon.com/no-till growers. Any of those are fair game. So yeah, any advice for putting beds to bed? Lots of advice. I think, like if you just want to get back into those beds in the springtime, a simple mulch, if you can find anything that's super simple, that's not going to add some risk, like hay obviously adds the risk of weed seeds. Straw also comes with that same. You could be planting like wheat. So if you can find something, even just like a light layer of compost, if you can do that, cover crops, obviously, but all the important caveats of, for instance, like you don't want to plant rye, vetch, or whatever if you need those beds in March. So you want something that will either die pretty fast, or one that I recommend if you want this is one I've been playing around with more the last couple of years, is planting a field pea late. Now that field pea will survive, but it's so much easier to kill that in the spring than it is like a rye or vetch mix. So what I would recommend is do one of those ones that, and I don't know where you are here, Richard, maybe you can let us know. But if you are like, if it's if it's something that's like really, small, but it's pretty winter hardy, it will survive. And then most of that stuff, even the Sweet Alyssum Lacy Facelia is another one that will, stay small, stay pretty tender over the winter. And then you just mow that basically really low to the ground. It'll pretty much kill it. And then you can just prep those beds like you normally would. Those are like, obviously, my opinion is that growing plants is the ideal. It just isn't always the ideal in the spring. So you want to just make sure to, whatever you choose, that it's going to be easy to get rid of. Like I wouldn't put daikon radishes in right now. They probably wouldn't survive anyway, but I wouldn't put something like that in case you're a little bit further south of us, something like that wouldn't, that would survive and then be, kind of annoying to get rid of in the spring because you'd have these nasty roots to deal with. But like, yeah, something like peas could be an option. Yeah. And then, like I said, like a light layer of compost or something else could be another option. I know that a lot of people will put like a light layer of compost, and then maybe some row cover or some, not row cover, like landscape fabric or burlap or whatever over top of that, so it doesn't like blow away or get washed away or whatever. And then you pull that back and you just plant in the spring. So that could also be an option. Yeah. All right. I got to do another quick ad read real quick. Today's episode is also brought to you by Farmhand. Farmers who partnered with Farmhand grew an average of 63% this year. Because it's more than software, Farmhand is your business coach and assistant, helping you sell out, save time, and grow smarter. The real data from real farms, shaping websites that convert, campaigns that sell, and fulfillment systems that run smoothly. Curious what that looks like? Meet the founder, Ari, at farmhands.partner farmhand.partners/no-till and see the same insights and support the fastest growing farms rely on every week. That is farmhand.partners/no-till. Big shouts to them. They've been longtime supporters. Let's see. We'll get back to these questions. Hector asks, Hector D. Low Era, I think I nailed that one this time, asks, I will try to dry farm garlic. Oh, I will also try to dry farm garlic. I tried a couple years ago and only had to irrigate maybe 4 times at most. Other than mulch to maintain moisture, are there any other practices I can use? This is funny. I just talked about this. We have an episode coming out next Wednesday, where I talk about that sort of idea, but then I was going to expand a little bit more on like dry farming techniques. The biggest thing with dry farming is your timing. You don't want to, like, if you're in a drought and you see no rain in the forecast, don't put stuff out. And this is part of the why like soil blocks work so well, because soil blocks you can, like, let's say you're going into a drought and you have soil blocks versus cell trays. Those cell trays like have to go out. You don't have a choice. But if you're in a dry farm situation, you can keep those soil blocks in your greenhouse for longer and keep them watered until you see some sort of rain in the forecast and then put them out. So timing is a big part of it. Fertility management is a big part of it. Mulching is a big part of it. Just making sure, especially with something like garlic, you should be fine because, so it grows over the winter. I don't know where you are, Hector, but, or maybe were you the one that said that you were you were in San Diego. I don't know. Growing garlic may be a little bit different there because you all have you're much drier than we are. Those are the biggest things, like maintaining moisture with mulches, I think is a huge one. And then, for that, just lots of good compost, like make sure your soil is nice and rich. Those things will definitely help. And let's see, Bygrage writes, good morning from Crescent City, California. I have long raised beds close to fruit trees. How to keep fruit tree roots from growing into beds? Oh yeah, this is complicated, especially for you all, because they, for us in Kentucky, like that sort of situation does happen, but like in a drier climate where the water is really concentrated, this is why you all end up with like mole and vole issues or gopher issues and stuff way worse than we do, because all the water is concentrated like at the roots of those plants. So like, whereas water's everywhere, like every root has water, acres and acres and acres, miles and miles all around us are just grass. So like nothing concentrates like it does here. So, but like for plant roots, for tree roots and that sort of stuff, they're just coming after that water. And I mean, there's not a ton you can do. Like you can, dig put in some barriers around at the bottom so that the plants can't get in there. And you basically would just dig a trench around and then put some root barriers in there. I mean, I don't know how well those work. It would be pretty hard to stop it. I think you can use, various materials for that. But I don't think it would be super easy to stop those. I think part of it is just always going to be that your trees are going to want that moisture that's there where your beds are, because you're presumably irrigating your fruit situation, or your garden beds. And so, that's the best option. And then just like regularly, sort of pruning them, so to speak, like taking a digging shovel and just kind of cutting them off around your beds, just regularly dipping that in there to knock them off. But I mean, I don't know, other people in that situation may have better experience with that than I do, because like I said, in Kentucky, it's not so much of an issue, just because, they can get their root for their water from anywhere here, and most of them are pretty happy in that way. But that would probably be the place to start. Let's see. Cherry Parfait writes, southern tip of Ohio here, and much of the same conditions and timing as you. That is very true. Is sprouting broccoli something you've dabbled in? Yeah, sprouting broccoli works great here. They need some sort of vernalization period, so you need them to go over the winter through a cold period to really do their thing. But yeah, they you could do. There's lots of different varieties. Pretty much, I don't know, the ones that I've tried, let's see, we always grow DeCicco because you get that nice first little head and then you get all those little ones. That's always one we've grown. But none of the ones that we've tried, I can't even remember some of the names off the top of my head because we haven't grown them in so long. But yeah, they're wonderful. I love sprouting broccoli. It is a really, really good early spring crop too. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll grow kale in the fall, and then just in the spring, we'll start harvesting those little shoots as like, broccoli rabe sort of thing. It's not quite the same. It doesn't quite have the same yield, but it's those are great too. We've used those for years. But there's no reason you couldn't. When people ask me what the climate in Kentucky is like, I'm like, just imagine Ohio. Whatever you imagine Ohio is, that's kind of what Kentucky is, just a little bit hotter. Got another super chat. Let's see. Mike, can you clarify who that super chat is from? I feel like can't tell. All right, hold on. Let's get back to where were we before. Thank you all for coming. Also, if you all have questions or super chats, make sure to get them to Mike there in the chat. He's the one that is doing all the work there. Oh, Hector just shouted out a donation. So, thank you, Hector. Appreciate that. You rock. Okay, and then, got another super chat from Doug Libby. What's up, Doug? Just a super chat to say happy Thanksgiving. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate you. Sorry, I'm saying a lot just because I can't often read these very well just because of the light. All right, so Gravel Boss writes, I work at a biosolids composting facility. Research shows adding biochar with growing sunflowers work to lock up pharmaceuticals, etc., while the sunflowers help to remove them from the soil. Thoughts? Yeah, absolutely. This is a thing, and there are studies to back that up. And I think I talked about those relatively recently. Both biochar and sunflowers are capable of some amount of remediation. Now, the complication there is that in lots of plants do this. Sunflowers are really good at bioaccumulating certain things. I think heavy metals. Other plants are better for bioaccumulate. Like they're testing. I've seen various research that shows like we're testing this one versus this one just to see who can bioaccumulate better. So anyway, sunflowers are really good at it. And what they do is they draw out those nutrients, and then you have to get rid of those sunflowers. That's where the complication comes in, is that you all of a sudden you have this sort of like toxic plant, right? So you have to find ways of disposing with that, but it can at least move those chemicals or those nutrients or whatever the problem is from one place to another. It's pharmaceuticals, it's herbicides, it's PFAS in some situations. So like the forever chemicals. So yeah, it is definitely a thing. And I think that's cool that you're working in a biosolids composting facility that's doing that sort of stuff. Or presumably they're doing that sort of stuff, or I hope they are. That would be very cool. Let's see. Cooper Poo. All right. Writes, what are the thoughts on biochar? When should this be added? Fall or spring? As long as it's like inoculated, right? As long as it's been soaking in compost tea or in compost, it doesn't really matter necessarily when you add it. I think probably ideally just to get it established, I would do it in the fall, but it doesn't really matter. It's just that inoculation part that matters, right? Getting it, like fully, sort of occupied with microbial life and then adding it, right? You don't want to add it. Like if you're adding raw biochar, you definitely wouldn't want to do that in the spring. If you had to do that for some reason, and there's no reason to, but if you did, then you would do that in the fall. But there's really no reason to. You could basically just make like a compost slurry and then just soak all your biochar in that and then add it. Like and just, do that for a little while. And then at very least you're occupying some of the pores in the biochar with microbes. And that way, instead of doing it, the reverse, letting the soil do that work. In other words, you wouldn't want that because that's going to suck up some of your nitrogen and it's going to lock up your soil, and you wouldn't, that wouldn't be ideal. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Fall or spring's totally good. Permaculture Homestead asks, do you ever forage? I used to forage a ton. We used to forage for restaurants. And I don't so much anymore. There's some decent forage around here, but nothing super exciting. We just had we had hundreds of acres of woods to walk around in. So that's all I did. I would basically, start out in the spring where we would get wood sorrel, and sheep sorrel. And what else did we harvest in the early spring? We would get some, gosh, there were so many different things now that I'm thinking about it. Some of them, I can't even remember the names of them. But we would get, we'd go for morels. We couldn't find a ton of morels. Sometimes we'd find a good batch if it was a good season. And we would also harvest lots of pokeweed for poke salad and that sort of thing. And then we would, and once the summer started, usually around June, we would start getting chanterelles. And if it rained like every week, like if we got a decent amount of rain every week, we would harvest chanterelles from June until the late September. And then you would move into other mushrooms. Now, that's complicated. Every region has different laws for that. So don't just like go and pick chanterelles and take them, because you really have to be able to identify them properly. But one thing I will say, just like if you're just foraging for fun, and you can identify chanterelles, make sure that you know what you're eating. Never eat a mushroom you don't know 100%. Definitely never sell a mushroom you're not 1,000% sure of. But if you know what you're doing and you can harvest them, but you can harvest, like everybody says, like, be gentle, like with the harvesting areas. But what we found in our area with chanterelles is that it almost seemed like the more you harvested, the better they did, like the next season. So like we stopped being so gentle on our harvest with those. And you can try this a little bit. I'm not going to recommend this. Maybe it's just the varieties that we had, the species that we had, but we would harvest them really hard. Like basically everything that was up. And then throughout that year, but then the next year we would just get tons of chanterelles. It just got better and better. So yeah, part of that is moisture. It's almost like irrigation. Like it has to have consistent moisture to consistently produce. But that was one that we did a lot. I mean, we would sell hundreds and hundreds of pounds of chanterelles every season. So that was that was fun. We would do that. It was hard though, because it was always in the middle of the summer. So like on a Friday night usually is when I would go out. Like I would be exhausted from harvest. We'd have market the next day and I would just be like, I'm going to go bust out 10 pounds of chanterelles, and I would just go and see what I could find. And yeah, that was tough to throw that in there, but and then there's lots of various other mushrooms. There's also lots of stuff. We did lots of flowers. I loved foraging, and I still love foraging. We don't have we have some spaces that have some decent stuff, but and we've there's a few crops that we've kind of like encouraged, ramps and that sort of thing. Over the years is a big one, ramps. But yeah, I'm a big fan. Always, foraging is great. And let's see, I'm gonna drink water real quick. Hideaway Homesteader asks, hello, we are overwintering potatoes for the first time in Southern Ohio. Our weather patterns have been crazy this week. Had some 60-degree rainy days. Worried about them breaking dormancy. Any advice? We're in a similar region, presumably, but we've never overwintered them. They probably will break their dormancy. Whether or not that will kill them is a different story. We have kept, we always have volunteer potatoes the next year, so there's no reason it wouldn't work necessarily. I wouldn't guess that it would be a problem. I just don't know what your yields will be. Like you may lose some of them. Just depends on how deep it freezes. And, I think like this week we're all in this region about to get into like the 20s for a couple days. So yeah, it'll probably freeze. But I think, potatoes, like our potatoes break their dormancy probably around this time every year too. Just the ones the volunteers that we didn't catch when we were harvesting. And then we end up having potatoes in the spring anyway. So it's not something I'd be super worried about. But I mean, I don't know. Let us know how it goes, because I'd be interested to know if you can do that well and get a decent yield off of it. Never really tried it, but I'm definitely game. I love that sort of stuff. All right, we're going to take we got one more quick ad read. Well, we got two, but I'm going to do one right now. And this one is from Johnny Selected Seeds. Johnny's is a proud supporter of Growers Daily. We appreciate them. At Johnny's, they do more than sell seeds. They grow them. They trial them to see how the seeds perform on their research farm in Maine and across the U.S. and Canada. Only the best varieties are added to their catalog and website. When you need proven varieties you can count on and get detailed guidance from seeding to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. Go to johnnyseeds.com. Another seed purveyor we use a lot. And Salanova is definitely our biggest Johnny's products, but we use a lot of their different seeds, a lot of their tools. We really appreciate Johnny's for all their support too. Let's see. Where are we? Maxwell Grant asks, what are the best crops to rotate through the winter in a high tunnel? I mean, I guess it depends on what your goals are. Like I don't do a lot of rotation necessarily in the tunnel in the winter. Basically, like what I'm trying to do most years is plant heavily in October, let it all grow, and then harvest it as much as I can through the winter. Do another planting like usually in January for our spring stuff. So that's like my rotation would be, we'll have kale, carrots, spinach, lettuce going into the winter. Kale will pretty much stay there all winter, more or less, depending on how well I protect it. And then in the spring, the lettuce will be done. So we'll plant another round of lettuce. This time we're actually going to plant it a little earlier than we normally do, but usually in January we'll plant our carrots in January. Well, another round of carrots because those will all be out. And then we will also plant, we'll do another round of spinach. Usually around Christmas, I start thinking about another round of spinach. And so, yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, we don't do, because you can only get so much. I mean, I know a lot of people will grow like things like arugula. But you can only, the winter's so slow. Like December, nothing grows. It's just like everything stops growing. And all the way from basically like now until, late January, just nothing grows, barely at all. So you don't really get, at least we don't get much of a rotation. It's basically just like grow it, let it preserve there in the cold, harvest as you can, and then start the next round, start the next season. But yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, you could do lots of different stuff though. You could have arugula in there. You could have things like mosh, claytonia. What are some other things? Yeah, you could do lots of different carrots. Herbs, cilantro is a good one. It survives pretty well in the winter if you cover it. And parsley's okay. Like it'll get hit earlier than the cilantro will, depending on how well you cover it and stuff. But honestly, in a tunnel in our climate, 6B, Central Kentucky, if we throw like 2-row covers over stuff, like lettuce, for instance, we can pretty much get that all winter, even if it gets down into single digits. So that would be like the -12 or colder if you're in Celsius. So yeah, it's not much of a rotation, but that's kind of the idea. Let's see. Doug Libby asked question: if one were to lease land, what % of the yearly expenditures should be the lease? Happy Thanksgiving to all you farmers that grew the food on our tables. Much gratitude to you all. Thanks, Doug. All right. So what percent of the yearly expenditures? I mean, that's a tough call because, if you're going to compare it to like a mortgage and all the insurance and stuff that you have to have for owning a house, like there's almost no amount of money that it would not come anywhere near there, right? So it depends on if you're leasing a house with it, but if you're just talking about the land should really only be a few $100s per acre to rent, even in like pretty nice areas. It just depends on the person leasing it to you. It depends. I mean, if there's a house there, that's a different story, like I said. But if you're talking just strictly the land, even if it's $500 a year, $1,000 a year, like that's significantly less than a mortgage. That's, to me, that's, if you're running an actual farm, like that's pennies. But it's not, I mean, there's still an expense there, but like it can get, these things can get pretty expensive. I don't know that I have a perfect number for that though. In terms of a percent, it's an interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. Maybe if I sat down and actually like mathed it out, but it really shouldn't be that expensive. It just depends. Like if you're trying to lease like an acre in the middle of, I don't know, Minneapolis or something, and it's like in town, that's going to be a different story than if you're trying to lease like an acre out in the countryside, where I think last I checked, I mean, you're talking $300 to $400 an acre for most. Like if you're a corn farmer and you go to another farmer and you're like, hey, I want to lease all this land from you, they'd say, great, it'll be $300 an acre or whatever. That wouldn't be an unreasonable amount of money. So but as a percentage, I think that'd be harder for me to nail down, but it's a good question. At Christopher Davies asks, morning, you have inspired me so much this year. Thank you. Any tips on finding good cash crops in your really early years with minimal zero customer base, or minimal to zero? So that's a good question. starting with the fast stuff, honestly, market research is where you have to start. You just kind of have to figure out what is missing in the market. Maybe depends on where you want to sell and how you want to sell it. The best cash crops in terms of like just a quick profit, like actually getting some cash flow, tend to be the faster stuff, right? So microgreens, radishes, lettuces, those sorts of things. But, like in terms of finding like a customer, it's not worth growing those things if you don't have a customer base. So it is important to do that market research and just be like, what of these like faster crops, like look, you can even get the Johnny's catalog, which I probably have. I don't know. This is probably one of 10 I already have, and farmers will know what that's about. But like just go through, find the stuff that is the fastest day crops, and then make a list of those and then go and see which of them have a market. So you may be like, okay, well, bok choy, tatsoi, those are fast. Is there a market for this? Or, microgreens. Is anybody doing microgreens in my area? Just check it out. Like go to the farmer's market, go talk to some restaurants, like, just stop in, like when they're not busy, right? Like when they're not about to be in service or anything like that, or maybe you just even go eat there when they're on a slower day and see if you can talk to the chef for a minute and just be like, hey, I'm looking for things that you're missing. Or do you need microgreens? Do you need lettuces? Do you need this or that? That's your market research, and that is like the start of any business, right? Any business has to start with the business plan. So, in farming is no different. I always say this, like we over romanticize what we're doing here. It is romantic. It's super cool what we're doing, but if we want to do it professionally, you have to treat it like a business. And so, yeah, that part is that's the first step, is getting that, figuring out what the customer base looks like. So yeah, it's a great question. I love it, Christopher. All right. Let's see what we got here. Make sure I'm not missing any. Okay. Danny Daniel, never sure exactly how these all go together. So Daniel Luzin, asks, or Dan Illusion, could be any of these. Any updates on stage on the various cover crops are at what? Wait, sorry. Read this one wrong. Any updates on what stage your various cover crops are at right now? This is a good question because I actually was thinking about doing this recently. Just want some sanity check on stuff like crimson clover and peas and oats. Great question here, Dan. So basically, our cover crops, so depending on when we sowed them, like our peas are still up and pretty tall right here in Central Kentucky, Zone 6B. They're up pretty tall, but they've been flattened by a couple of these frosts. We're about to get 2 hard freezes. So I'm going to guess they will survive those, but they won't survive the next one if it's in rapid succession. So what'll happen is we'll get 2 hard freezes, maybe 3 in a row, and then they'll probably be just about done. They'll flatten down. And then if you get another one after that, they're toast. So that would be like all of your peas and oats and that sort of stuff. Then things like crimson clover should be at about, 8-10 inches. Just depends on when you sowed it. For us, I can't remember. It would have been probably late September, early October when we were sowing that crimson clover. And it's, roughly 8-10 inches tall, maybe a little bit lower than that. And it'll get hammered down a little bit. It'll stay close to the ground. Rye vetch, really small, like 3 or 4 inches tall. Because we sowed all that. All of our rye vetch didn't start till the beginning of October. So none of that should be very tall. You don't really want it very tall going into the winter, because then sometimes it'll, depending on how harsh your entry into the winter is, it can die. So you want it kind of small, staying small. And then we have some peas that we sowed late too, that we sowed around that time, that are closer to like 3 inches tall. So I don't know if that gives you somewhat of an idea there, but that is, that kind of is where we're at on winter cover crops. So I hope that matches what you were thinking. At Manor Gates Market Garden. Hey, Jesse, I would like to know your thoughts on how a market garden should develop season after season. I watch a few different YouTube channels, and it seems like around 10 seasons in, systems are established. You? It's hard to put an arbitrary number on this, because a lot of things can change within a few years. You get better at your books, you get better at your growing, you get a different customer base, or maybe you go down one road. You're like, all right, I'm a CSA farm and I'm going to do this. And then you get to year 5 and you're like, there's this whole other market that I'd like to do. So I'm going to pivot to farmers markets. So like, does that reset you, and how long it takes to develop? Maybe. I think, you should have a good picture of where you're going. Like you should start with a plan. Like at 5 years, I want to be here. And in 10 years, I want to be here. And then you should just regularly sort of update that as it goes along. So like if you do make a huge pivot in the middle of all that and like 3 years in or whatever, just reevaluate and be like, all right, so 5 years from now, I want to be at X. 10 years from now, I'd like to be at X. But I don't think it's valuable necessarily to put an arbitrary, like every farm should be at X by this point. I just think it's good that you have a plan for what you can do and what you hope to get out of it. And then that way you're always, you have a target that you're sort of going for. We've pivoted several times, and it's like sometimes you get lost in this fog of like, where are we going? What are we doing? But it's good to step back and be like, okay, so now this is what we're doing. So now with this product, with this idea, I want to be here in 5 years, or I want to be here in 10 years. It's hard to put an arbitrary number on it though. I think that as long as you're feeling good about your systems and you're improving them and you're improving your soil, and you're getting to know your customers, you should have a good idea in 5 years, like how far, or if you're on your way, right, to whatever your 10-year goal was. I know that's not a super helpful answer maybe, but I think that's a place to start at least, is just look at that market, that plan, your original plan, and just make sure that you're on track or readjust it. But great question. I love that. At McKenna, Andrew Fox writes, do you think it'd be okay to winter mulch my beds with direct from the barn animal bedding, not smelly, well-balanced carbon to nitrogen? To directly put that on your beds in the wintertime, I don't necessarily see a problem with that. In an ideal situation, I think you would just go ahead and compost it if you can. Like if it's not too much work to just go ahead and build a pile and compost it, because you're going to get a better microbial makeup. You're going to get a lot of those nutrients. It's not going to be like uneven where you're dealing with like, oh, well, this part of the carbon's broke down, but this is like not, and there's like a big chunk of just dry carbon right here, when you're trying to plant in the spring. So that would be my only concern, is just like unevenness, I guess, in terms of its decomposition. Like really when you're composting, you're getting a nice even mix, and you're getting a good microbial breakdown. So you get that initial thermophilic breakdown, and then you get that curing stage where you get to draw in a lot of biodiversity, and then you add that and you're getting all those nutrients released and all that good stuff. So I don't know. That's where my brain goes with that. You could do it. I don't think it would be, if it's not smelly. And like you said, it's a good balance of carbon and nitrogen. I don't necessarily see a problem with it. But it also depends. Like you said, it's, barn animal bedding. If it's maybe chickens, it would be a little bit easier to deal with than if it's like horses that have these like big chunky manures, that may not decompose and may not decompose carbon as well, because they're pretty carbonaceous. So that's just some things to consider. Get another drink of water here. All right. Grace Permaculture 9512 asks, have you had much experience with making leaf mold compost? Do you know if there's a way to speed up the process if we aren't interested in turning? Actually, I think I did a show on leaf mold compost back in the summer at some point. Maybe it was right before, maybe it was in September. I feel like it was like when we were starting to think about leaves. So, it's really time, water, nitrogen. These are the things that are going to help you. But the big thing with leaves that I think it's underappreciated is that the main thing that's going to break down leaves is are fungi, and fungi just need time. They're just slow. So because the lignin, the cellulose material, is so difficult for most microbes to break down, that's what can break it down. So it's just going to take some time. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to turn it a lot. It does help if they're chopped up really well. It does help if you keep it really, really well moistened. And it does help if there's some nitrogen source mixed in. So like adding, your kitchen scraps can help. Adding some sort of blood meal or something like that can help a lot. Those are, the basic sort of things. But, really it's just time. Time is the biggest thing with that if you want the best leaf mold. So what we've done, what we started to do now is like we get a big load in the fall and I just basically let it break down for a year, and we use last year's now, if that makes sense. So like make a big pile, leave it alone for a year, start using the year before's, and then just start that cycle. So you basically have to wait a year to start using your first round. I don't know. It's not ideal, but or you can speed it up by turning it and adding nitrogen and those sorts of things to get it to just break down faster. But yeah, and then also, like I said, chop it up because that's where you get that surface area that'll help. All right, we got a handful more questions here. I'm gonna do our last little ad read, and then we'll answer those last few questions. This one is from Marble Seed Organic Farming Conference. Marble Seed Organic Farming Conference attracts a wide range of regenerative and organic farmers for 3 days of skill development and community building. Farmer Drew Kramer said, "Going to Marble Seed was so invigorating in a time when I needed it most. I picked up tools I'm already using." The conference is the final week in February in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Early registration opens December 4th at conference.marbleseed.org. That's conference.marbleseed.org. All right, that is cool. December is like next week, so that is super fun. All right, let's get these last few questions, and I've got 10 more minutes. What's a good cover crop? Fruit Pruning Channel. What's a good cover crop that will grow in mulch between garlic harvest and garlic plant? So like you want to grow I think if I understand the question right, you're going to grow the garlic, harvest it, grow a cover crop, and then plant more garlic. That sounds like what you're doing here. So it depends on where you are. If you're further north than us, your garlic doesn't come out until like August. Like up in Canada, like most of their garlic doesn't come out until August, which is bananas to me because our garlic comes out in June. And we can put a whole other crop in between garlic in the winter time easily. So what we'll do is we'll haul the garlic out, cover that area with a cover crop, usually something like, let me take that back. One of my favorite things to do, especially for us in our climate, is pull the garlic, separate a little bit of space in where the mulch was, put in, I think I just talked about this, put in some winter squash, mulch that with some more hay, and then just let that grow all winter. And then we'll either pull that mulch aside and put a rye vetch or something in the fall, or we'll sow some crimson clover right over top, and it usually germinates pretty well right there on the surface. To answer your question, to have one between the garlic harvest and the garlic planting, probably something like, let's say you have a full 2 months or 2 summer months ish. I would think something like a vetch, sorghum Sudan grass. My voice is running out. Sorghum Sudan grass. You could do Sesbania is a good one if you're not too far south. Something like if it's a real fast turnaround, like you're at the end of August or something, and you just want to get something in there for a little while before you plant your next round of garlic, presuming you're not. I'm hoping you're rotating these, but let's assume that you can't for whatever reason. You could do buckwheat. Buckwheat is not going to cleanse that soil like something like sorghum Sudan grass will. Teff, like I said, has been playing around a lot with that. That's a good one. And also, if you don't plan to grow like a cucurbit or something in there, you could throw like a winter squash or something in there just to kind of like liven it up, give it a little bit of different mix. And radishes and that sort of stuff. You could throw a little bit of brassicas in there, sure. Sky's kind of the limit in that. If you're just gonna, cover it, mow it, and then maybe lightly till it or whatever you're gonna do to get it ready for the next crop. I think that would probably be my approach. At GB Organic Farms, I'm in Ghana. Cool. Do you have any advice concerning dry season vegetable cultivation? Dry season vegetable cultivation. Like the biggest thing with, dry farming when it comes to cultivation is, and I don't know the climate of Ghana at all. I'd love to. Maybe one of these days I'll make it out there to see your farm. But mulching is going to be a big one. I'm not sure how much carbonaceous material you all have access to. That helps a lot with cultivation. In terms of like just general cultivation, after it's like you plant it, you get those crops really well watered in, and then you make sure to cultivate them immediately. That will help a little bit with the soil moisture, but it'll also help with weed prevention. And then, if you have any sort of mulching material, anything that will trap that moisture in there that's available, depending on, and like I said, I don't really know anything about the Ghana climate. So maybe it's something where you want to be like, if it's super hot and dry, you want to consider burying it a little bit, like having it lower in the ground so you're not getting that wind drying the crops out. There's lots of different techniques for that, ancient techniques for planting in the ground, like the waffle gardening here in the United States was one of those versions, like out west where it's super dry. I'm not sure how dry Ghana is, but yeah, I mean, that could be like, like something where you're basically building up around your garden beds. Instead of having elevated garden beds, you're having almost like concave sunk ones. But yeah, I mean, that would probably be a good question for somebody in that area, but it is something I'd love to know more about. I'd love to study some of those regions a little better. So great question, and best of luck on that. Jordan Chavis writes, "Hi, thank you so much. Is there any reason I can't work my land in mid-December instead of waiting for spring?" Depends on where you are, Jordan. If it's wet, then that's your reason. You wouldn't want to work soil when it's wet, because that's going to cause compaction. Which will cause drainage issues and disease issues and all sorts of other issues. And it'll just be a pain, muddy, not fun. So that's the biggest thing. If you're in a region that's not wet right now, like if you're maybe further south than us, then no, there's not necessarily, if the conditions are right, there's no reason that you wouldn't, like, if it were dry here, and but cold or whatever, yeah, I would I would have no reservations about plowing up a plot of land and then making those beds and getting that all ready for the spring, and then maybe throwing a tarp over top and just pulling that back and planting in the spring. Like just get it ready right now if I could, sure, and if I needed to. But yeah, your biggest issue is moisture. Like if it slicks in your hand, if your soil doesn't like lightly crumble in your fingers, then it's probably too wet. Like if it slicks, like if it just feels like mud, then you don't want to work that soil. At Excel 101 asks, how loud did you scream when that penalty was saved against Brentford? And would you send the same player twice for a PK? Loud, very loud. That was amazing. That was like one of my favorite moments. And for those of you who don't know, you are future Brighton fans because our goalie is incredible and, love the Dutch, big fans. So anyway, Verbruggen saved a really amazing penalty, and I think all of my neighbors heard about it. But yeah, then I would say, send that same player twice because you're going to miss 1 in every 5 penalties. So, chances are you got it out of the way, probably. Anyway, yeah, that's great. I mean, soccer is one of my favorite things in the world. And it's just like sometimes I just need something else for my brain. And just getting to witness those moments is the best. At the Solar, this will be our last one, and we'll head out of here. But the Solar Designer asks, Zone 6B shouts, how do I deter moles, shrews, 7 voles from eating beets under my caterpillar tunnel? Shrews and voles. Yeah, I mean, your biggest thing is, depends on what 6B you are. Like, I'm assuming you're a little bit drier, maybe. There's not a ton you can do. You can get some animals that will help trap them. There's definitely different mole and vole traps that you can get. That like a lot of it has to do. There's lots of different. Like in a tunnel situation, it's the same thing like that bed that I was talking about earlier, where you can bury stuff around it. It's super labor intensive. I think part of it too could be how you manage the area around that. Give them something else, like trap crops, so to speak. I always think about this with, California. It's difficult because water is so limited, or wherever, dry areas where it's so limited, to have an area that's also moist that keeps them sort of away from where you want to grow stuff. So, that's where my brain goes, is you just really want to protect, the area as best you can. To keep it from them being able to get underneath it. But I know that stuff is expensive. So for like 100-foot caterpillar tunnel or something, like it's going to cost you a pretty penny to get that all protected, like dig that whole area out, put that sort of protect, what is that called? The mole fencing, whatever it is that you put underground, like 18 inches or 2 feet or whatever, to keep them from coming in. Like that stuff is super expensive. Obviously, that would be the ideal, just to keep them from coming in. But yeah, that's a challenge for sure. So I wish you the best of luck there. There's not like trapping them and keeping them out is probably going to be your best answers. And maybe there's some other stuff, like some more natural stuff where you could use like castor beans and that sort of thing planted around. But those are kind of old wives things that I don't know necessarily are super high functioning. But you could try them. You could try some of those methods. But I don't know. Having a cat too helps. Like, definitely love cats. Our cat is the best. We've had her she will be 12 in January, which is mind-boggling. Anyway, I think we're going to call it a show. We really appreciate you all coming out. Don't forget that No Till Growers is officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. You can learn more about how to do that in the show notes. Mike will set up the show notes with all that stuff. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out. Really appreciate you all coming out. And yeah, hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, all those things. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife, Hannah, for everything in the world. I never give her enough shout outs. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you cannot hear, but you will be able to hear next time we're on here. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soul Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. A big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the waning month of November, you get a shout on the show. So big shout outs normally at this time, but we're not going to do that on the live show. We will get back to it on Friday, and it'll be awesome. Thanks for watching. We will see you then.